watch the live stream. So,
Yeah, we're getting there. So welcome. I'm Pete Kane, Podcast Pete, and we got a special guest that's on the show today. And so we can better understand who you are. Would you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
sure. Thank you, Pete. And hello, everyone. I am Ambika Devi, and I am a corporate wellness speaker and an author of, well, I'm working on my seventh book, so an author of six books. I have international writing awards. I have that bestseller sticker that everybody's getting. So I like to talk about the international awards. I taught holistic health at the university level for 21 years. I started meditating when I was 6 years old, and my passion of what I study and continue to study is a Far Eastern philosophy that is one of the paths of yoga. People mistaken yoga for just an exercise program. And yes, that is a big part of it. But the breathing exercises, which I think are finding their way into other streams, are how we actually approach what yoga is all about, which is meditation, quieting the mind, stopping the churning thoughts, being able to back up and witness. My mission is a peace mission. And up until just recently, I was focused on telling you that I don't want you to wear your stress like a badge of honor. But now I'm adding to that that I don't want you to label yourself with the T word, trauma. And that is the focus of what I'm writing about and talking about now. And I like to speak to your inner child and tell you stories because that's how I feel we learn and grow together.
hmm Yeah, if you would have told me I was going to be a meditator and a journaler like 4 years ago, I said there ain't no chance I would ever do that. I tracked my sleeping over 5 hours, and it was 6 hours and 31 minutes. I could never get it over 6.5 hours, but I started meditating and I started obviously breathing because I had a stroke. I had to learn how to breathe to be able to talk. And my emotional part of my brain was affected. So if you mentioned something to me and it hit the emotional part, I would just weep. And I didn't even know that it was hitting, but breathing helped me calm the brain because I have the ADD active brain too. So I've learned how to meditate, which now I'm doing 7.5 hours, and I've gotten a better quality of sleep because I meditate in the morning, I meditate in the evening, and sometimes during the day when I kind of want to slow down a little bit and just center myself. So, for our viewers that haven't started meditating, they've heard you starting at age 6, me just recently. What could you say to them that they, because they do have that Far Eastern kind of mindset, like, oh, that's that woo woo stuff. But tell our viewers in kind of in just in your own words, what you see in your clients, what you see in the people you work with when they start using meditation. What did they say to you?
Well, even before all of that, what I want everybody to understand is that you do get into a meditative state. As a matter of fact, uh, remember I said I taught holistic health. I have many, many techniques I can use. And we know about hypnosis. I don't really consider meditation and yoga woo-woo at all. I think it's quite mainstream anymore. And so is the sister science of Ayurveda, which is for the physical world. Remember, I said meditation is really what yoga is, but yoga is the entire tree. What I want you to get is that you get into a meditative state. We've heard it talked about in the term of sports as the zone, but from a hypnosis point of view, every 90 seconds, brain waves will get into a place where we could go and into the state of meditation. So let's just take this as an example. Have you ever, either you being the one watching something on TV, especially like a sports game, like football, or I'm talking about European football, soccer. If you know, that's a game that can be very hypnotic, right? When you're watching that on a screen. And if you were trying to get the attention of someone who is watching that, have you ever tried and they don't hear you? They don't see you. You could walk in front of them. You could clap your hands and they're not. You were in the state of meditation right then. Have you ever played a sport or gone for a walk where you suddenly realize, wait, how did I get here? You know, or if we watch someone, especially I notice this in ice skaters who do long programs when they're being interviewed and all those mics are in their face and they're asked, you know, how do you feel? What did you think of your performance? And they can't even respond yet because they're still in that zone, that state of meditation. You could do it folding the laundry. You could do it when you're making something in the kitchen. And I know everybody has had this experience where you're driving and maybe you miss a turn and then you realize, wait, how did I get here? Who was driving the car? The real you was driving the car. And the state of meditation is where we can back up from thought and from the ego mind and witness it. So the practice of meditation teaches us to watch the thoughts. I know it's really confusing when we hear a directive like close your eyes, focus on your breath, and imagine your mind is like a glassy lake. That's not going to help me get relaxed. That's just going to make me wonder, what's a glassy lake supposed to look like? But that's a metaphor for the state. Really and truly, if we understand that I am not this body, I'm not the mind is external. It's not inside your head. It's feeding us stuff, and the thing, that globby fatness kind of thing in your head, your brain, is a receiver, like a computer processor. Mm-hmm. And then we have senses that attach to eyes, ears, nose, mouth, skin. So we have those senses of sight, hearing, breathing, smelling, and taste, and our ability to digest what we put into our mouth, but also what's going on in our environment. And that's where the sister science to yoga, Ayurveda, comes in, because its belief is that everything you need to be healthy is in your kitchen. So if it's not, we need to talk about what's in your kitchen. And I definitely coach people on that. I don't tell you what to eat. I tell you information. I feed you information so you can digest it, and then you can make better choices. And of course, if you have more questions. Sleep is also something I'm very concerned about. I have a sleep course on my website too. And what I've noticed about sleep is it's very unique to the individual, and that what is causing insomnia differs from person to person. Mm-hmm. So in the sleep course, I had interviewed a lot of insomniacs when I created it years ago. And the information is so valid because there's just different needs for different people, and you have to experiment. There's no on-off switch when it comes to all of this. And I know our Western minds, because we're taught in the pairs of opposites. The light is on, the light is off. But where that's concerned, the darkness is ignorance. It's when we don't understand or don't know tools exist, and the light is knowledge.
Do you think, I lived in a senior facility for about almost 2 years, and if I had to say one thing that I would hear pretty regularly was the sleep issue. You know, do people have more difficult getting that proper sleep or feeling refreshed as they get older? Or is it just the habits that they've taken to their older years that have created an issue with, issues with sleeping?
Sleep is actually an indicator, one of the main indicators of the level of your health. So it's a measurement. We
Yeah.
know that the body needs to rejuvenate.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs 8 or 8.5 or even more hours. Some people do need more hours of sleep. Some people can function on less. But the things that contribute are your environment. So if you're sitting watching news on TV repeat, that is going to disturb the mind, and that is going to continue churning in your thoughts, and that is going to be one of the things that's disruptive. Having a room that's not dark enough, having the temperature too warm, these are things that can prevent you from sleeping. And so we measure by what your body functions are doing and your energy levels for different things like creativity or wanting to go outside. If you're not getting sun at all and you're in a facility with artificial lighting, that's extremely disturbing. Extremely disturbing. So these are things to consider if you're working in an environment with fluorescent lights versus LED light of some type. It is disturbing, and something that can help reset is going out, watching the sunset for that last hour, or the
Mhm.
sunrise for the first hour, what we call the golden hour right before that, and then leading up to it. This will help reset the endocrine system after a period of time, and it usually doesn't take that long. Grounding is something that people talk about a lot. Putting your feet on the earth. That's why walking on the beach is so relaxing, in addition to the lithium and other salts that come from the ocean when the waves break. But having bare feet on the ground, lying on the ground, there are ways to get around this if you live in an urban area. That's why parks are so important. Having a plant, just loving a plant, and then what are you putting in your mouth? If you're having a lot of caffeine and you're complaining to me about insomnia, what do you think the first thing we need to address is?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I recently have started the day out where the sun rises. And so to get that sun on my face, I knew it was so important, but I was trying to do different things. Like I gave up TV, gave up alcohol, gave up sugar, gave up some things to test how it affected my brain. And I'm rewiring part of my brain from the stroke, so I'm very sensitive to what the brain needs to rewire. What would you say, like, in when it comes to sleep, when it comes to the ability to get a holistic kind of feeling, what is more important in your eyes? Like, you got sleep, you got breathing, you got eating right, you've got the how we nourish ourselves, whether we put enough water in our system. What's important to you to get that quality of that holistic feeling? Because I've heard grounding. I don't take my shoes off because my feet curl on one, so I haven't done that yet. But I've heard that being said.
Hmm.
You got to ground yourself and be able to feel the earth.
There,
So,
well, there's ways around that too, Pete.
okay, sure.
There are inserts and shoes that have copper in them that a lot of people find useful. Uh, you could put pennies under your bed. Pennies are going to be discontinued soon, so grab a few for that.
What
Uh,
does that do? I mean, so
it's grounding. We
copper.
are electronic conductive organisms. We are mostly made of water, which is highly conductive. It's
Okay.
not your brain, it's your central nervous system. The brain's just part of it. The brain is actually an adjunct organ to the central nervous system, and breath affects it more profoundly than anything. But even in modern day yoga studios, and especially in gyms that teach yoga, they go right for, just do the stretching. That's not yoga. Yoga, a full yoga practice has pranayama, which are specific breathing exercises. It has meditation, which is quiet, seated, emptying. A lot of people confuse that meditation is focusing on something. It's not. It's it's backing up.
Hmm.
and making space and witnessing the witness state. You know, when people are talking to me about difficulties in relationships, which is mostly what I talk to people about, although I love talking to people about pivots in life and, career moves, creativity, but a lot of clients come to me because of relationship distress. And if you really look at whatever relationship is troubling you, you'll see it's really reflected in all your relationships, friends, family, work, and if it's a romantic partner. But what I've noticed and why I have this new mission against the T word of trauma is because there are words that are popping up a lot. Avoidant. No, that's fear. If you're avoiding something, you're afraid of it,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And then trauma is re-reaction. So as a meditator, we might notice a thought like, oh, yeah, what do I want to have for lunch? Or did I remember to put this on my grocery list? Or did I turn the stove off? This is noticing a thought. If we start churning and re reacting to it, that's creating trauma. You can't label somebody as they have trauma or I have trauma. Everybody potentially has triggers. These are triggers. But this whole idea of labeling trauma, this is my mission. I want to get rid of that whole label.
I had a gentleman on my podcast, and he said this about the trauma. He goes, we were talking, I think it was about the military, but it was PTSD. And he said, take the D, drop it, and put G, PTSD. TG. So we grow through our trauma. So we grow through our adversity. We grow through, we have a choice.
But then you're still holding on to it, Pete.
Well, I
What
think,
I want you to do is back up from it, notice what triggered it, and then let's go to where that began. Because what happens is, if we suffer a loss, like let's say, your favorite pet dies when you're a child, or your best friend moves away, or your family has to move away, and you have to leave your best friend and all your schoolmates, right? That's an original early loss, or maybe even back earlier. Maybe your parents never got together. Maybe there was no mother or father or either. That's an original loss. But then later, you could have an incident of your favorite t-shirt getting so many holes in it, you absolutely have to let it go. That could trigger that trauma. Or a grandparent dies, or your parent dies, or your best friend dies. Then we suffer bigger losses. But I don't think enough people who are looking at this are really taking a person all the way back. A skilled counselor and therapist will, of course, but they might dig one level at a time. The way I work with clients is I go right to that point because I can pick up on it easily. I can notice 47 years of counseling and coaching people. I don't need to lay you out for 6 weeks to figure out where that trauma line is and what originated. And then, in Eastern philosophy, we believe in karma and that we bring in these lessons that we have the opportunity to learn through in this lifetime. And what is the end goal? Do you know what the end goal is
of
of life?
of life. Well, as my belief as a Christian, it's heaven, which is, to be in God's presence. And so my daily is to show the love of Jesus through how I live my life. So my happiness, although that's the end game, I show up every day like today's the last day on earth, present, enjoying people, and just discovering the beauty in people. So, but I didn't believe that before. I almost lost my life.
Well, yeah, you got a big
You know,
opportunity to get real about it.
a reflection that I was always so busy being busy. I never reflected like I reflect now. And
Hmm.
so I journal. I've journaled for 3 years now, and I never journaled consistently before then. But it gets my thoughts out on paper. It gives me a chance to think. I have to be in total silence is my go-to, thing. I have very little sound for the first 5 hours of the day. It's
Hmm.
complete silence.
Well, and also no screens.
Yes. Oh,
You know, the
totally.
beginning of the day and the end of the day, because that blue light is affecting the brain and the central nervous system. So if you pick your phone up before you're meditating in the morning, you kind of blew it. And at night, if you're watching TV, I have nothing against it. I enjoy entertainment and laughter, especially at night, to unwind, and blue blocking glasses, and turn the lights down, cut the lights down a little. It's unfortunate. It's hard to get incandescent lighting anymore. So we have to be very mindful of the wattage and, what's going on. But blue blocking lenses absolutely can be a game changer for sleeplessness. Now, the end game, and I appreciate, embrace all religions. I'm not speaking religiously.
Mhm.
I believe in a divine omnipresence. Different organizations have different names and icons for it. I am a Vedanta scholar. That is not a religion. Okay? I am a minister. People ask me, where's your church? I say, outside, nature.
Mhm.
I'm a universalist minister. I can conduct all the ceremonies from pre-birth to death, and I have. But the end game is merging. I think where a lot of philosophies kind of fall a little short is still keeping you outside and saying with rather than becoming. Because if we look at it as cosmic energy, we're actually merging back. And the idea of reincarnation is you haven't quite gotten to that place of enlightenment,
Mhm.
merging in the light. So you become it. And this is what the goal of yoga is really all about with meditation. Because when we're in the meditative state, and we're really in there, and think about it, you could do this folding laundry and all the things I listed earlier. We don't know our name. Somebody might say, "What's your name?" And it would take you, a moment or several to get back to say, "Oh yeah, I'm Ambika." Or so you don't know your name, you don't know what day it is, you don't know what time it is, you don't know where you are because you disappear, just like in the dream state. Are you still in the bed or are you in that dream scape? You're not in the bed, but the body's in the bed. So you don't know your name, you don't know the date, you don't know the time, you don't know where you are, and the key, you don't know that you are. And by that you are, that's removing the ego. Because the true self is the witness. So when we're deep in prayer, hopefully we're in the witness state and not a judgment state. Judgment state is ego.
Mhm. Do you associate any of, I know when I have dreams, I get more quality feeling when I wake up when I've just kind of remembered about a dream that I just had. Does dreaming have anything to do with the quality of your sleep?
In Oriental medicine, traditional TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, which I'm also trained in, it is believed that dream is disturbed sleep. Do I love dreaming? I absolutely do. Do I keep dream journals? Many of the books up on that shelf right there behind me are
Mhm.
dream journals. The current one I've got, it was started in 2020. So I'm coming to the last pages, and I've started getting them fatter, more pages, because my dreams are super vivid. Not everybody can remember them. If you want to remember your dreams, find a dream buddy and make a pact that whenever you remember a dream, you're going to tell it to each other and you're going to write it down. That will help. That tells the psyche that, oh, this is important info. There are healing techniques. Asclepius had dream temples. I visited them. They are on the same mountain, or I guess we could call it a mountain, in Athens, Greece, at the foot of the Parthenon. It's above the Temple of Dionysus and the Theater of Dionysus and the Asclepian dream temples. It is also a traditional technique in the Far East in many cultures. So people do come to me with dreams. I was part of a dream group at Temple University back in the late 70s, early 80s. And one of my astrology professors from college, because I have multiple degrees, that is my addiction, is learning. I am a schoolaholic. And she is a dreamer for Scotland Yard. Now, it's not easy to become a dreamer for Scotland Yard if you're not from the UK, but I did pass the first level of doing that. And I did teach psychic ability for 6 years in an online school. I wrote a 7-year program, and the premise and the structure is everything from meditation and healing techniques, because that intuitive part of our brain, which is also the part that ideates and is creative, and the part of us that is hooked into psychic ability. I was actually just working on my 7th book earlier today and finished writing that whole, tightening up that area in the book, because I want to create in this book that I'm working on right now, making it accessible to even a child.
Mm-hmm.
So my book that's an introduction to Ayurveda, meditation, and a little bit of cosmology, which is unfolding happiness, is has this in it, some of it. And what I want everybody to know is that you are all able to, you have your physical senses. Some people have a stronger one, some people don't have a great sense of taste or smell. But then we have super sensing, like a pilot. Their eyes are sharper. A lot of them have 20/10 vision when 20/20 is normal or considered normal.
Mm-hmm.
I have worked in kitchens with chefs who can just touch a spice and know exactly how to use it. They don't even smell it or taste it. I've worked in kitchens where it is forbidden to taste and touch the food that you're cooking before you serve it. So you have to do it through smell. Vintners are mind-boggling with their super senses,
Mm-hmm.
and you could think they're psychic because they could hold a cork and smell it and tell you exactly which side of the hill the grapes were grown on, what the growing season was, what year it was, what type of barrel wood that was aged in, and for how long. So that's super sensing. Think of a parent who thinks I'll never be a parent when they were younger, and then they have a child, and the child's now sleeping in a room down the hall, and the child stirs or something's wrong, they're up. What woke them? It wasn't necessarily sound. They're hooked in at a super sensing level. It could be a touch. It could be an air quality that they feel a vibration on. It could be anything. And so each of our physical senses has the ability of a super sense. And then we have the psychic senses of that start with the French word clair. And modern choices have been to change it to clear. No, it's clear sensing in English, but it's clairaudience, clairalliance, clair sentience, etc., with each of the physical senses. But then there's clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is just knowing. And guess what? That's where we get when we're really in the meditative state.
Hmm.
So if
So
we're getting messages, just one more little thing, Pete, if I may. When we're getting messages, it is our job to be able to learn to delineate and decipher, was that my ego or was that really information coming in? Because people will tell you, oh, that information dropped in, or I'm getting a download. What percentage of that is ego?
hmm, I like that. I like that, when I had the days to just think, it was a rich time, even though I'm trying to figure out the left side, get it going, do all the things you need to get that left side moving again. But to slow down and think, it was really the first time in my life that I did that at age 64. And it's been rich because now that's, I guess, the sense I go to all the time, because I have a friend who's a PT, and he comes out of the military um, pathway where he was exposed to a lot more of that trauma noise and thing. So he has to always have noise on. He can't.
White noise, yeah?
Yeah. He
That's
that's
helpful. That's
yeah,
helpful. It's soothing.
that,
It's like,
yeah.
why do people love cats? you know, if I'm a little bit, look, I get stressed out. Everybody does. Monks get stressed out. The Dalai Lama, but they recover and witness and identify and then recenter
Yeah.
and calm. It's a matter of speed. I am not discounting trauma. I am not discounting PTSD. That is real stuff. But what that is reactions that a person can't stop. I have worked with people who wake in the night screaming because they have been in war zones. That is absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And it horrifies me that we human beings do this. I constantly, if you follow me on social media, which I hope you will, is I am constantly posting about love and peace and things that I make in the kitchen because I want you to be inspired to eat something healthy. And,
Hmm.
I do funny stuff too because humor is so important and I don't have any boundaries. Do I want to listen to all humor? No. Music is really important,
Yeah.
but we have to really be aware and mindful of what kind of music we're listening to. I used to work as a musician, a professional musician, and some of the stuff I played in bands and orchestras, I don't ever want to listen to again. I prefer music without words, or if there are words, I want them to infuse me with positive vibrations and positive thoughts. So people, when I worked in a clinic, Pete,
Hmm.
and people would come in with various types of cancer, the first thing I would ask them is, what kind of books do you read? What kind of music do you listen to? What are you watching on TV? And it was always, heavy metal, horror, things that if we really back up from it, we could see, yikes, why do I want to put that? That's feeding your body,
Yeah.
your mind, and your spirit. So when you were right in the early stages of recovering from that stroke, and I love what Ram Dass said about his stroke. He said it was like, if we look at the word stroke, it's like stroke of genius, you know? That it's like paddling a stroke on the river of life. But you got the chance not to think, but to watch the thoughts. It gave you the opportunity. And when people come to the end of their lives, because I was with my mother in her last years, 12 years, and she lived to be 97. I'm 65. So, a lot of people look at me and go, "What? You're what? How old?" And hey, I walk my talk.
Hmm.
I practice what I preach. And If something feels stiff or off or not right, then I back up and look at, well, what are my habits? What have I been doing? What have I been listening to? What needs to be processed that maybe was an interaction with someone? What have, you know, what's going on? And then really contemplate, well, what needs to shift? You know, if we look at the healthier actors, the public figures, the ones who aren't shooting themselves up with Ozempic or whatever. You know, like I love Salma Hayek because she's healthy. She does cleanses on a regular basis. She exercises. She plays in the ocean like a child. And, you know, take the cues from these people,
Yeah.
not the ones who are all filtered and shot up with goodness knows what, but the
Hmm.
ones who are really practicing healthy habits. And don't try to change everything at once. One little thing until you
Yeah.
feel comfortable, and then
Yeah.
another
And
little thing.
without you say that, I disconnected with TV. I did disconnected with social media. Still kind of glad I'm not even back. I've 3.5 years without it. And I heard somebody explain it this way is when you're scrolling, you're making over 1,000 judgments. If you spend 2 hours, you're either deciding, do I like it? Do I comment it? Do I share it? So you're fatiguing the brain through judgment. And so you wonder why, you're snapping at people because you've fatigued the brain in the wrong way. You've wired it the wrong way. And I notice because I don't drink alcohol, a little bit of sugar, I don't keep it around. And I quit putting it in my coffee. I'm trying to get some into tea because I don't know. I just love it trying things to.
Hmm.
But you're right. You can't do all of these things at once because you don't know how it's going to affect yourself. If you do all this massive change, you can't tell. So I do like that.
Well, and that's the same with diet. You know, there's all these different diets, the carnivore diet, the military diet, drink lots of water diet, just
Yeah.
eat this diet, don't eat that diet, be vegan, be vegetarian, be pescatarian, you have to do what's right for you. I suggest if you want to understand more about my food philosophy, watch my free class. It's not a master class. I'm not hard selling you anything. It's called the 4 Keys to a Healthy Diet. I don't tell you what to eat. I teach you about the basics of Ayurveda. I teach you about body types and hormones. I teach you about food classification for satiation, satiety, and just give you an education, flip the light on.
Hmm.
But another thing I really love is everything in moderation. You want to have a little alcohol? Fine. Don't slam it down every night.
Yeah.
You
Totally.
want you want to do whatever other recreational things you enjoy? It's fine. But do you have cleanse days? I fast twice a month for a day. Some people fast every day. I do a water fast. Sometimes I do have green tea on those days. I love good matcha. It's not easy to find good matcha in this country, but I'm in the US, by the way, everyone. And but I did find some. So if you want to know my matcha, get in touch with me. Send me a message from my website, and I'll tell you which matcha I'm using. Um, and just be gentle with
Mm.
yourself. When we go through waves like the moon goes through its phases, we might need something. We go through all kinds of different phases every moment, every day, every week, every year, and then in clumps that have trends, and we can see them, and some are swift and move swift, and some seem like they're so slow and they take forever and we can't dig our way out of the muck. That's when you reach out and you ask for help.
Mm.
And it's hard because we're taught to not be embarrassed by our shortcomings. But I want you to know, everyone, that I'm here to love and support you and welcome you. I don't have any judgment about any kind of taste or identity or spirituality. I embrace it all because we're all here having a human experience. I don't believe in old or young soul. If we won the lottery of a human lifetime, we had an equanimity of positive and negative, good and bad. And as soon as we get judgy, we're back playing with a light switch. I want us to find the rheostat.
Hmm.
And I want us to realize that we all have it and we can dial into positive, but sometimes we need help and we need love. Reach out, get a hug, hold a cat, listen to purring. Really, that's amazing. Some people, that's why they have dogs, because not only do they want that unconditional love from something that lives and breathes, but they need something to tell them to go out and take a walk. Maybe you don't need a dog. Go for a walk, for goodness sake.
So help me, because next month I want to start some fasting and just test it on the body. So as a beginner, what would you recommend? I like you said twice a month. So talk me through that.
Okay, well, I fast on particular phases of the moon. It's in the word is ekadasi, uh, and it is quite amazing. I mean, I've known people from different spiritualities that always fast on Wednesday or always fast on Sunday, but just pick a day. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to understand more about this, come to me personally so I can work with you on it.
Okay.
But pick a day, or have you tried intermittent fasting yet, Pete?
I've not really, I've heard about.
I think the best way is start with that.
Yeah.
So, if you really want to move towards a full day from sunrise to the next morning sunrise, which is really from the last time you ate the night before till the next time you eat the day. So it's a little more than 24 hours. So I think the best way to go is the 6 hours of eating and then the other hours of not eating. This is also the recommended intermittent fasting for a bigger boned type person, and
Hmm.
also good for hormonal shifts. And so, especially because you had a stroke, I wouldn't want to put you through a 1 day water fast. But, and then if you are a caffeine user, I would say use your caffeine, but no milk, no sugar,
Hmm.
no oil, no butter, because people are putting ghee and oils into their coffee. I don't know if that's still trendy, but it was in 2018,
Hmm.
and I think it is with some people. Bulletproof coffee,
Yeah.
but I prefer good quality green tea and matcha. So
Hmm.
for me, if I have matcha in the morning on a fast day, no problem. you know, I do love matcha in the morning, and then I get into writing.
Hmm.
But do I have to have it every day? No, I can leave it a day. But you do have to be careful if you're a caffeine user because you will get a headache and it could even cause a migraine. The other reason why I'd want you to kind of ease into it, Pete, is because I wouldn't want you to create a migraine or some kind of kickback.
Hmm.
So even before you start that kind of water matcha fasting, I'd
Right.
say do a 1 day fruit or do a 1 day broth. If you're a bone broth user, then just do 1 day of bone broth. Every time you're hungry, bone broth. Warm is better than cold. Juice
Okay.
fasting can be rough on the body because if we're taking the pulp and the fiber out of a vegetable or fruit, we're
Right.
actually concentrating the sugars. Doesn't make sense. So if you want to do that type of, say, a cucumber, kale, and celery drink with coconut water, then put it in the blender. I'm not a big advocate of juice extraction. I,
Hmm.
I get a good quality. I'm going to say a brand name. Is that okay? I use a Vitamixer. It's powerhouse. I've had them since the 70s and they
Right.
are just amazing. And I'm sure the ones I've given away when I've upgraded are still pumping. Whereas I have friends who have broken other brands. And so anyway, forgive me for plugging a brand. I'm sure they won't mind. Um, But really, I'd want to look at what are your habits. I'd want you to keep a food diary for a week for me of everything that went in and everything that came out. And
Hmm.
then I would help you ease into the idea of fasting. I don't think it's something we can jump in.
Okay.
A 3 day fast is maximum. People that tell you I fasted for 30 days, I don't think that's healthy. There,
Mm.
years and years ago, I lived in Pennsylvania, and there was a big fight over the Delaware River because they wanted to dam it up and move the river out to the west part of the state. They did end up putting in a pump, but the river's still flowing down to the ocean out in Philadelphia, out and beyond. This was further north, and there was a man who was just so distraught that he fasted. And I was working in a clinic at the time, and the organization said, "Would you please go work on him and see if you can convince him to eat?" And if somebody's doing it for a political reason, a religious reason, I'm not going to push that territory boundary.
Hmm.
But I saw what a body looks like after more than 60 days of fasting. That's pure starvation.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard
That's
this.
not healthy. And there are organizations out there teaching, self body care that are promoting more than 3 days. Please, people, 1 day. You want to do more than 1 day a month? Do 1 day a week. If that feels great, or you go through a phase where you may be vacationing at an all-inclusive resort and having too much fun, or a cruise, then come back, do a 1 day, and then maybe the next week or the next month do a 3 day. But that's max. And like I said, like I recommended to you, Pete, bone broth. If you're a bone broth drinker, that's a great way to go. If you're not a bone broth drinker, vegetable broth, dashi. I love dashi. That's made from kelp seaweed. Maybe that doesn't agree. And traditional dashi has bonita in it, which is a type of fish. So, but then it's strained out, but you've got the nutrients. Even in Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, we will recommend salmon and some other things. So it really depends. I was vegan for 27 years. There were issues. I have been all kinds of vegetarian. I am not a complete omnivore, but it's a personal thing and a personal
Yeah.
choice. And we
Yeah.
have to also realize the quality of what we can get our hands on. It's important to be organic and hormone free, antibiotic free, all of that.
Sure. So tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of you?
The easiest way is my name.com, ambikadevi.com, AMBIKADEVI.com. And you can find my Linktree / my name, my YouTube, that's my name. On some social media, I added a number 1008 because other people had the name. It's quite popular in the Far East, but I do have the .com of ambikadevi.com. And if you're watching, it's on the screen. I'll spell it one more time for those just listening.
Yeah.
AMBIKADEVI.com. And I'm sure it's in the show notes.
Awesome. And we will. So as we wind down, what would be the one thing you want our viewers to take away from our time on this podcast?
You are enough. You were born enough. And when you were a little baby, you never doubted it. You required that people coo and tell you you're cute and adorable and that they love you and you deserve this now. So I want you to go to the mirror and I want you to look right in your eyes and I want you to say, I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. And then I want you to tell yourself your name. So I'm just going to use my name, Ambika. I love you because. And then I'll end it with, because you're really cool. Ambika, I love you because you really love to tell stories and help people. And so you say, I love you because after your name, and then just keep finishing it off with
Mhm.
whatever word. Thank you so much for listening to the end, everybody. And thank you, Pete, for having me as a guest on your show.
You've been very welcome for that. I enjoyed having you share and talk and be on the podcast. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Amika, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Be bold, make a difference, and have fun. Well, we have something going on here.
We're still rolling.
We won't
Bonus round.
cut that because it won't let me end the stream.
Ah,
There occurred, wait a moment, and then try again.
that's hilarious. Okay,
Hey,
so
the world can't get enough of you. They don't want to cut it off.
I think that's the first time this has ever happened
It's
on
never
us
happened.
on
I've
one on this platform with
hundreds of
me.
these over the 8 years I've had this platform.
Somebody doesn't want me to stop, Pete.
I love it. That's a good sign. Well, we'll leave it. It'll cut off once I disconnect.
Okay.
So, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. If you ever want to just get back together with me and talk, please
I would
do.
like to
And
further.
please connect with me, everybody. I want to help, or at least, follow my Instagram. You'll get lots of good info there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.